All right, welcome everyone to Serious Angler Podcast, where our main course for you will be talking and hopefully teaching you more about bass fishing, but of course, not without a distraction or 10 here or there. The OG Serious Angler folks know exactly what we're talking about, so you guys are in for a fun one. Whether you're here to learn or just hear three goons chat about bassin', you're in the right spot. I'm your host, Bailey Eichbrett, here with the bassin captain, Mr. Andy Full. And new for 2025 and beyond, please welcome our newest official co-host of Serious Angler, formerly the host of our Business from the Bass Boat show here on the Serious Angler Network, Mr. Adam Deacon. Adam, good to have you join us here on every episode going forward and bringing your perspective to everything. Tell the folks what you got going on for 2025 and what we can bring to Serious Angler here, man.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, thanks for the introduction. As folks who have been with the Serious Angler podcast long enough, they know we've done a lot together and have all been a part of this. But more than anything, right, like the big change for 2025 is we're getting away from Business from the Bass Boat as its own show and integrating that into Serious Angler as a segment in the show. Number one, and we've kind of talked a little bit about that. But in addition to that, there's going to be more curated content. So that's the whole thing here, right? Is we just felt like it was such a niche kind of deal that it made more sense to have YouTube content specific for that, as well as a small segment of the show rather than its entirety of its own show. Still going to do a lot of things with guests. We're still going to do curated content. So it's not going anywhere. But I'm super excited to be with you guys. You know, I get fired up on things together, especially bring energy. For me, it fills my cup up energy wise, having multiple people, different things going on. And so super excited for this, excited for 2025, man, fishing the BAM tour out west and a lot to come there for myself and working really hard outside of that work wise. And so, man, looking forward to 2025.
Hell yeah, dude. It's gonna be exciting because we know it's been, like I was saying earlier, the OG Serious Angler fans know Business of the Bass Boat has been an integral part of what we do here, and it's been a wild ride, I would say. And I think we finally found the formula that we all love. I think that especially for folks that'll be tuning in, bringing the best of both worlds in this new episode or this new format, I should say, of Serious Angler going forward. So we're going to get into the industry side here a little soon. But before we do, Andy, kicks things off for us here in 2025. What can the folks look forward to on their very first episode of Serious Angler for the new year?
Well, and without a doubt, right? Shenanigans. Like that's just what we do
Should be
around here.
expected.
Yeah, rabbit holes, some fishing talk, maybe a little bit of education, and a whole lot of learning and a whole bunch of fun. And I think that's kind of what we're about in a way, and try to be serious, but not so serious at the same time. And really excited to actually have Adam here because I think the three of us create a very interesting dynamic that is going to help elevate our show to further heights than we already are. And I'm really looking forward to 2025. It's starting off with a bang with an awesome episode here today. And I'm just looking forward to continuing it on through this awesome year and into the future.
Like, yeah, well, we got some more notes to go through here, but to give people a little bit of sneak peek, Andy, before we get into some more notes here, what is it? What is a little sneak peek for folks on today's first episode?
Oh, we're talking all kinds of things industry related and some shenanigans and maybe a little what if scenario goes wrong with some forward facing sonar talk. So stay tuned for that part. It's going to be fun.
So it sounds like we're starting off 2025 right. There are definitely some new and upcoming trends in fishing, as well, from tackle to how we approach our days on the water. So we'll talk about all of that in today's show, as well as some cool data from the folks at Omnia Fishing to reflect all of those notions. But without further, I just fucked that up. Whatever. But Adam, what's some of the buzz around the fishing industry right now?
Yeah, man, buzz around the fishing industry. So first of all, guys, this is going to be sort of the new segment for Business from the Bass Boat, some sort of news clip related. And that is brought to you, number one, by our friends over at Rec Lending, back with the podcast for 2025. Great folks over there. We've heard from Todd. And the biggest thing that I would say is if you are in the market right now looking at a boat, and or this is the time of year when people start to look at their finances, start to look at year-end stuff, taxes, all of that, it's worth checking in with the rec lending guys if you do have a loan on your boat to just see where rates are. There's been some kind of changes with rates right now, and they're good enough guys to say, look, you don't need to change anything. You've got a great rate. Or they're going to be like, hey, it's worth checking back in with you down the line when it maybe makes sense to refinance. So give those folks a call. If you've got a boat, an RV, something in the toy space, they are certainly worth reaching out to. Okay, so segment today. Two big kind of things, and these have been out for a little while, but to me, we've got the NPFL roster has been released. No forward-facing sonar there, so super interesting. Some names there, and then also we've got no co-anglers in the opens. Those are kind of the two tournament-related news topics brought this week.
Yeah, this is, I think, too, that kind of shocked some people. We've heard the stirring of the NPFL of who was going over that way, some hype around the roster for this year, and then the co-angler one. I really can't put a thumb on how I feel about that. We're going to get into that. I think let's talk about the NPFL, and I have a list here, and I'll run through some of the names that jump out at me of some folks that have come over from the Elite Series or MLF, and we have, I believe he fished it last year, but Justin Atkins is one that jumps out at me. You got Zach Burge, who's been fishing it, and I think he'll dominate even without forward facing. I mean, he's kind of been a non-forward facing guy, I feel like, anyways. Like, he's good with it, good without it. And as we go down this list, Scott Canterbury's going over, Hank Cherry, the big one, Jason Christie. You got Brandon Cobb, Drew Cook, John Cox. We have, as we go down this list, Greg Hackney, Buddy Gross. You have a big one that jumps out, Tyler Williams, the former Elite Series rookie, who's in the bucket. I think at least fans would put him in the bucket of a forward-facing sonar guy who jumps in the non-forward-facing sonar league,
Love
which, yeah, absolutely love to see it. We got Kyle Welcher back again, who's been crushing over at NPFL.
AOY.
James, is it 2 AOIs, right?
No,
Did he win twice?
I think last year was his first year at MPFL. He won the Elite Series the year before.
Oh, correct. Thank you. James Watson, fishing boat docks is going to be fishing some boat docks in the MPFL next year. Patrick Walters back again. Andrew Upshaw made his jump. Gerald Swindle, Scott Suggs. Who else we got?
So basically, most of the Elite Series from like 2012 and before, some fresh faces and some original FLW guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple more here too, like Bill Owen. But yeah, to your point, yeah, Andy and Wes Logan, another year on the MPFL. Shane Lineberger, former Elite Series pro.
Greg Biffle.
And then Shane LaHue.
Wow. That's pretty
Shane LaHue, another quote-unquote scoper, will be there. I think Shane will do just fine. Caleb Kufal, and then Kobe Krieger. So a lot of guys moved over from the elites. But yeah, definitely a trend of guys that are very well-versed shallow. Not making the connotation that they can't catch them, because these guys have done certainly just fine without forward facing.
And they'll catch
so it'll
still.
be
Yeah.
It's going to be a cool look to the MPFL going into
Totally agree.
this year. Yep,
it's a great play.
Yeah, so cool to see. We'll be excited to watch the MPFL. And then yeah, man, co-anglers, or I should say, no co-anglers.
No co-anglers on the opens. Yeah, I think this is such a neat thing to me. I mean, neat and not neat, right? Like, I'm someone who traveled a lot as a co-angler to learn specifically, and so I see the benefits to it. I also see the negatives to it on the other side. So it's one of those, to me, like, not saying I'm riding the fence, but I'm not really choosing a side here. Like, I see the ups and downs to both. And it's an interesting take overall.
Based on the co-angler participation last year, I feel like the writing was on the wall that they were going to do this, just because through the events, if you go back and look, the participation actually dropped. My good friend Sakai backed out of fishing the opens because he's like, there's not enough people fishing them for me to even make money. And he was a traveling co-angler pro, right? Like, that was his livelihood. So he started fishing other events more just because there was a better
Might have been the only one to ever do that.
Yeah. Yeah, he did pretty
He
well.
was making bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This one is interesting to me because I guess I don't really have a horse in the race, so I don't have emotion involved, which is I have two perspectives that I keep coming back to on this one. One is I like the idea of co-anglers from the aspect of people that are trying to go and learn. And I think if that was your number one priority, it's a bummer to see no co-anglers. Now, if you're going to be a co-angler out of priority number one, making money, I think you're in it for the wrong reason from my perspective. And feel free for people to disagree or rebuttal that. I think that if you're going into an event as a co-angler and you're banking on cashing a check or something along the lines there, I think you're going into that event for the very wrong reason because it's out of your hands. You're basically trying to one bet on catching fish, one, and then bet two on your boat draw and going into a right location. And then there's a whole other game of playing with your boater on if you go to your spots, get you a limit, whatever have you, where it's to me, being a co-angler is always about learning and trying to get with somebody that you could take notes from, improve your game, see what they do, which is my other perspective, which I wish what they would have done is if they did away with co-anglers, make marshaling free. If anything, incentivize more people to become a marshal, which might help them get more people in boats with pros, but also still accomplishes for those that try to be a co-angler of learning, accomplishes that mission. They can get in the boat, they can see what these guys are doing, and it helps you to be more a student of the game. I think it's accomplishes more things from that department. That
And
makes any sense.
it does to me, and I don't know the answer here, but I think two things. I'm not taking away from anyone who has been a co-angler that has made a lot of money doing it. I know a couple of them that are just hammers, and it blows me away because I must just be a bad co-angler because there's some guys that are so good at it consistently, and it blows me away because it is so much out of your control.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. My intent always as a co-angler was to learn, and I learned a lot doing it. It's a lot of work and a lot of money, but you learn a lot doing it. You're getting a day guided trip with someone who's very good at fishing. And so to me, I totally agree there. The Marshall comment is interesting because I know for a while, like the reason they had marshals is because the insurance programs had to have another person in the boat outside of the pro. And so I don't know how this looks in the opens. And also, I'm curious if either of you know when an Elite Series event happens, obviously the classic, all the marshals are filled up. But when it's not a classic, are all the marshals filled up in those other events all the time? Or is it, I mean, what is
I
that?
think the classic is filled up.
Certainly the classic, but I'm just saying like it would
Oh,
be
you're saying regular season? No, they're not.
then why would but it's why would people also sign up for the opens if there's also the Elite Series marshals? You know what I'm saying? If we don't even have enough to sign up for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I guess more my point was I would have loved to see. I guess it's kind of completely away from the co-angler side. I just more mean that for people that are being a co-angler in efforts to simply learn, them shift a focus for that group of incentivizing people to be a marshal. Where if you're still looking to get in the boat with, say, these said pros, you can come to these Elite Series events and we'll pay you whatever $200 a day, whatever it was, to be a marshal and follow and be with the pros. Like one allows them to better accomplish their mission on the elites, but also assist a group that is looking to learn. I guess that's my point. Definitely went off a little bit,
That's fair.
but that's at least where I was looking at. But it's going to be interesting too. It definitely was some backlash, but it's hard to give backlash on something when there wasn't the participation.
Yeah.
So
Totally agree.
there's that. So, all right. So that'll do it for this week's edition of Business from the Bass Boat. Thank you, Adam. And folks, before we get into today's show, as always, we'll do our best not only to bring you some of the entertainingly educational fishing conversation, but keeping you up to date on what's happening in the industry. And so with that also means opportunities for you guys to save on fishing gear. And so we are happy to welcome back our partners at Omnia Fishing as a proud show partner for 2025. And be sure to always click the links down in the show description to see any of the baits, gear, anything of that nature that we talk about in our shows. They're always going to be linked down below. So you can click there, use the code Serious10, save 10% on all your tackle orders. And right now, there's a bunch of different things at Omnia Fishing that you can save on. Right now, 25% off Berkeley flatworms. There's new BKK hooks that are added to the site. And with that, if you spend a minimum $10 on BKK hooks, you actually get a free sample pack of hooks from Omnia Fishing, as well as some new things that are added to the site. Make sure you guys are always browsing the new arrivals. I told you guys before, every day I try to refresh the new arrivals to be the first one to scoop up all the goodies that hit the site. And with that, the new Cypher brand, you guys have seen Cody Meyer has been behind. Some of their new products are starting to hit the site, so be the first ones to pick those up. As well as shout out to our boy Alex Rudd, the new blaze colored money badger from Berkeley has hit our site. Take advantage of those, especially late winter, early times spring fishing. That's when that's best to be thrown. And then lastly, a special edition Omnia only colored Lil Magnum Beast Coast jig. We talked about it in this episode. Actually, we'll get to that later on, but it's a special edition color of that Lil Magnum only available on Omnia Fishing. So you can take advantage of that. Again, links are all down below. Again, every episode we go through this stuff with you guys on where to save, how to save at Omnia Fishing. Make sure you guys use our code. Click the links below. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode on the hot fishing trends going into 2025. All right, it is the new year, fellas. It is 2025. We've had a nice hiatus, I'll say, albeit I have been sicker than a dog for the past couple of weeks, but here is the first episode of 2025 here for Serious Angler. We've kind of given folks a rundown of what Serious Angler looks like in 2025, and starting episode 1 of 25 hot with kind of what the trends are in fishing in 2025. And before we start listing off what our trends here are for 2025, kind of want to run through what you guys have too on from your personal spectrum of maybe things that are trending for you guys, and we can kind of see it and overlap those through the conversation. But before we get to trend one, I guess, and I'll kick it to you, Andy, as a guide, do you see anything changing or trending for you as a guide from day one to 2025 for you?
The big thing that I would say is trending is just like the economy, like in a nonchalant way, right? Like it's getting harder to book guide trips. People are less willing to spend money as of right now, and I'm hoping that changes going into 2025. 2024 wasn't a down year, but it was not a growth year for my guide business as much as I thought it was. We had a lot of crap weather, unfortunately, that kind of limited what we could do. Spring was great, but so far, like this year, it's looking good. I got my spring almost filled up, so it's we'll see where the summer goes, but what I'm really looking forward to is trying to get more content done on the personal side and grow there and grow there. So, Deacon, what's going on with you for 2025?
Yeah, just quick question there on economic side. Do you feel like that's a time of year thing for you? Like as far as are just people just generally not booking in January anyways, or do you feel like it's less than years prior?
No, so my bookings for 2025 so far are about on par for where they were last year. But as in totality, I was down, I think I was down like 25 trips last year from the year before between bass and steelhead. And a lot of it's weather dependent and not being able to get the reschedule or health issues, etc., and people having to cancel. So I mean, we'll see where it goes, but I do have a lot of clients that are this year that are like, yeah, I just can't afford it because I don't know what's going on. So it's like, oh, this is good. It's real good. But we picked up some new ones.
Sound like a Great Lakes guide. Mother Nature kind of determines how many guide trips you're going to have for the year.
Yeah, I mean, you ain't kidding there. Like the bass side of things are great. It's more on the steelhead side. It's not even people. It's just we had a low water fall and then into a deep hard freeze. So the fishing conditions were very subpar to say the least. And I don't like to take people's money when fishing conditions are subpar. So
yeah,
I don't want
to
deliver. I don't want to deliver on a bad product, even though I can't. It's something I can't control, but I can control taking somebody's money. So try to err on the side of caution.
That's a respectful part. I mean, I think as a consumer, you respect hearing that because it's That's got to be a very challenging part of being a guide is, the fishing's going to suck. And then also just feeling like I can't imagine the pressure when you're sitting out there, they're paying you and they're not biting at all.
It
Like that's got to be
happens.
such a crappy
It
feeling.
happens. We end up moving a lot, walking a lot, and hoping to run into some. But I still are some of the most fickle fish that you can fish for. Like they're either on or they're not. So, and when they're on,
Right.
you have to get them in because it could turn it on and off like a light switch.
Yeah.
For instance, before I went on my little trip, I had a client. We had 2 bites until 1 o'clock, and I was like, if we just land on them, stay with me. Or if we can land on them, we're probably going to catch 5 or 6 in like 5 or 6 casts because we just need to find a group of them. And he ended up hooked 6 and 7 casts and landed 3 of them. So as I told you, it was going to happen. We just had to keep working for it. So it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
The North, not always.
What was that?
Yeah. The land of the easy.
Yeah, it's not. Smallmouth tend to be
Trend
more predictable.
trend wise for me, Bailey, your original question there. 2024 for me, I feel like I reached for big baits more often in tournaments and just bite getting situations. I think that was a big trend for me was glide baits, swim baits, bigger stuff, like just getting bit on that stuff and getting more confidence in that. I find myself most times of the year having something on the deck that's larger than I probably had in the past.
I like that. And I think that's perfect for one of the trends we're going to talk about later today. And with that, I'll leave the one notion of I completely agree. And that was part of it for me as well this past year. And funny how, say, 3 years ago, I look at 6-inch mag draft and think that's a little bit on the bigger side. Where now I look at the 6-inch mag draft like I used to look at, and still do, but like look at a 3-inch swim bait on a ball head where it's a bite getter. Where now I look at the 6-inch mag draft, like, yeah, I can just get bites on that. Like it's
100%.
it's now the wacky rig for me, where there's just a lot of confidence in it. You don't look at it like it's a big swim bait anymore. But we're gonna get into more of that here later because the first trend we're gonna dive into these. The first one we have is gonna be quick to the point. We can go around the horn here if you guys want to add in anything, but we left 2024 on this note, and we're gonna start 2025 on this note. And I think the industry needs to keep hearing this reminder, and it's that fishing is freaking fun. It's fun regardless of the species, where you're fishing, how you're fishing, regardless if you're using electronics or freaking not. If you're catching fish and you're outside, and you're having fun, who cares?
Yeah.
Keep doing it. All the better. And we're going to leave it at that. But if you guys have anything you want to add on to that, I just want to remind folks that if it's very easy to get caught up in all of the madness and the talk online, where it's you could put the phone down and just go fish. Remember that fishing's fun in the first place. All is good. But anything to add on that, boys?
Yeah, I mean, huge goal of mine for 2025, right? Like in my notes right now on my phone of goal is to do more fun fishing, and fishing's fun. Like we put way too much stress and all this stupid stuff on it, and getting back to just enjoying it, and especially with friends, solo trips, fun fishing, going to fishing for crappie, like doing things that I don't normally do. I'm finding myself. I like having new challenges, new passions, and that kind of a thing, and chasing panfish has been a little bit fun this last year.
They taste good too.
Also,
Yeah.
I like eating critters, like hunting and fishing wise. I do a lot of wild game cooking, and it sure makes it fun chasing them and eating them too.
There's your YouTube channel you need to start.
That's exactly right. Just need the time and
Deacon's Cooking Critters channel.
oh boy.
No, it's Sheekin's crappie adventures.
That'd be
Crappie
great.
in with Sheekin. There you go.
Wear a wig the whole time.
Sheekin goes crappie fish. Yeah, something. Panning.
Yeah, crappie times with Sheekin. There you go.
There we go.
Like it.
I love it. I love it.
It's so true though. Like it's so easy. I feel like, especially I feel like all three of us, to an extent, are fairly competitive in whether that's been growing up being athletes, whatever it may be. And I think even now, like as when we tournament fish, I think that's why we do tournament fish, the three of us, because we do have a competitive drive to our personalities, and that is very easy to get caught up in that and get involved in conversation of it. And then there's folks that you kind of just get down that rabbit hole and you kind of forget it's easy to lose sight of the original reason why you went fishing in the first place. And it's because people you enjoy being with, whether that's even being by yourself and enjoying that alone time. So just the sport is fun and relaxing in itself. And a great reminder I had of it, and we'll get off this one, is a couple weeks back. I shouldn't say a couple weeks, literally last week, when it was 10 degrees in Tennessee. I decided, screw it, let's go fishing with my buddies Alex Rudd and Caleb Bell. We went live gizzard shad fishing down on Chickamauga, and it's you can picture the image. It's the three of us in a 18-foot aluminum Alumacraft, and we're live gizzard shad fishing with bobbers and taking dead gizzard shad that died because it's so cold, throwing them at each other, not paying attention to our bobbers if they're being bit or not, giggling like a bunch of little kids, not catching anything on live bait, to finally throwing artificials and actually catching fish. And the first time I actually really enjoyed catching drum. I don't know what happened. We got in a school of drum and just kept smoking these like 12 to 15 pound drum, and we're giggling, but like a bunch of little kids.
Listen,
But
there's nothing
was
wrong with a
fun,
good
man.
drum bite. Like when the bass aren't biting, I just go to the drum hole and they pull and they tug and they fight
Pound
hard,
them.
no matter how cold the water is. They fight like
It was
sons.
cool. We ended up moving lakes, dude, and we were on like we were team multi-species that day. It was we moved locations and caught largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, crappie, drum. Rudd caught a giant freaking walleye in Tennessee, which it was probably 28, 29 inches, which is a very long walleye.
Big fish.
It's a giant
One other one. A lot of white bass too. Like it was just like it's like you felt like we're kids again, just farting around, being dummies, making fun of each other, and that's how fishing started, and that's how it's intended to be. So let's not lose sight of that.
I love it.
Heck yeah. Okay, fishing trend number 2, one that it's obviously been talked about a bunch, and I think is honestly still just gaining traction. This is why we have it as one of our trends for 2025, and that is BFS, or for folks that may not know, bait finesse systems. And essentially, to kind of give you guys a quick rundown, if you don't know what BFS is, to give you the technical rundown, is it's very, very tiny baits being thrown on casting gear. To give you the Joe Schmo definition of it, it's guys that refuse to go to spinning gear that want to keep using casting gear. So it's kind of laid out for you. But I'm curious. I'm going to go around. I mean, Andy, obviously I think of the three of us, you were the first one to really dive into BFS, being the Mr. Lure Lab yourself. So I kind of, from your perspective, where do you see BFS as a place for anglers right now?
I honestly think it's a spot where you're going to see increased popularity with it, right? Like as baits downsize, fish become more pressured. There's only two ways you can go. You can go bigger or you can go smaller. And when you get into midsummer, late summer time of year, right? July, August, early September, what happens in a lot of our lakes, the bait fish is year of the young, real small. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing is when you have these grinder tournaments at the end of summer and they might be on a southern fishery, you might see guys. And I think Matty Wong has already kind of been playing around with it a little bit on the Elite Series. You're going to see more guys, I think, go to those micro baits because as you go smaller, you're not only just going to catch bass, you're going to catch a lot of them, but big ones bite it too. So it just takes a little bit longer to land them.
Light line,
Yeah.
like we're talking like what, 6 to 10 pound braid typically on
like,
these.
Probably like 5 to 6 pound braid to 6 to 8 pound fluorocarbon.
I mean, I'm the absolute newbie when it comes to this BFS stuff. I kind of originally thought, and still a little bit am hesitant and think it's kind of some trendy deal to me. Like I do a lot of stuff on a spinning rod if it's going to be smaller and that's all I need. But the only place where I personally could see myself utilizing this, exactly like Andy's saying, that kind of a thing. But there are certain, especially when you're reeling something, I feel better and more in contact with everything reeling on a bait casting reel than I do on a spinning reel. Granted, I've cut a lot of smallmouth on a small swim bait, right, on a spinning reel and a bait casting reel. But I think there's something to the bait casting reel side. But I have a problem casting 8 pound line, 10 pound fluorocarbon, 8 pound fluorocarbon, especially on a casting reel. So my question, Andy, is on these BFS reels, which again, I have never used. I've just held one in my hands. Can you do the same thing with a straight fluoro situation? Because that's, to me, there's a benefit of straight fluoro sometimes in a reeling application like a single swim bait.
I'm sure you could, but you're only going to get probably 30 to 40 yards of line because
It's that
the spools are so thin, like they take up so much
Mhm.
space inside. And that's why you have to use that 4 or 5 pound braid, is to be able to get to 80, 90 yards of line on there. And then you use your fluorocarbon tip so you can make a really long cast. You have to remember the rod that you're using too is a super light action rod. So you could technically overpower it with 8 pound or 10 pound straight fluorocarbon to be able to cast those baits.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So with this, I wonder too if we could see, and I'm sure some people started doing it. I'd be curious to see if more people start using this for the whole jig head minnow forward facing deal instead of using spinning gear just for the pure fact of efficiency, where
You're going
it's
to be
you
more
might be able to
accurate with casting with it too.
right. So there's that standpoint. Yeah, I could see it being a replacement for some, but I think it's more of, I think if you're going to replace it, it's like if you're the avid of the avids, where if it's, I don't think like swapping to jig head minnow on this from spinning is like a matter of maybe a half a second difference for somebody that's efficient with spinning gear.
Mhm.
But I think this too is those small crankbaits that somebody doesn't want to use on spinning gear, that wants to make more casts in the day, that simply like casting gear. The line factor though is what I think is I think more so than the rod and reel, the line factor might be the biggest learning curve for BFS for people,
Yeah.
because the bait's an easy tie on, tie off, look at rod lure rating for weight and size, but the line might be the most difficult part.
I think where you might see like it make a big push is like in the hair jig game for smallmouth, because you're gonna be able to cast it further.
I like
You're gonna
that.
be more accurate, and it's built around throwing like 364 to 1/16 ounce max, 1/8 ounce max. So like you're gonna be able to cast a hair jig really far on a short rod and have way more control.
Interesting.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. So like when I messed around with it, I didn't have it set up properly, but I was able to, the core tackle, like hover rig jig head they
Yeah.
made. I could throw that a mile, or a nail weight and nose hook swim bait, like a cast echo. And I was, or a cast prodigy, and I was able to throw that thing further than I could with like a standard spinning rod, like an additional 40,
Really?
50 feet. Yeah, with the BFS, with the wrong
Wow.
rod. Yeah.
That's interesting to me. Like thinking about like bombing a Senko way out in front of you on a spinning rod and like that cast distance being a big factor,
Yeah.
but having an extra couple of 30, 40 feet to it, to me, especially as, fish get more pressured shallow and see everything, like that's a big deal.
So think of it this way, Deacon. Instead of throwing your 5 or 4 inch Senko on a spinning rod, right? You could go to like a 3 inch Senko on that BFS and throw it just as far.
Mhm. What
Like we
about
do
rod
in
choice here? Like how has that been a thing with these super light baits? I mean, what's the selection out there amongst
There,
different brands right now?
there's a few, like Shimano makes a decent one. Dobbins has one. I know Daiwa's got a few. There's you just had to look for them, but there's a lot of companies that make BFS specific rods. Now, if you're to go to like Japan websites, they're all over the place because it's huge over there, right? Like,
And it's like light rods, like 7 foots. Like
like
give us an
probably
average.
like 6'4" to 6'10", like,
Why are they so short?
because, well, you're dealing with a small diameter spool. So if you have too long of a rod, you're going to over torque that spool. So you're going to backlash more,
Interesting.
right? So you need to go to a shorter rod, and it's a deep parabolic bending rod. So it's all,
Roads.
yeah, it's too scientific for me to really talk
Right.
about. The engineering of it's too complex.
we will have a further in-depth BFS show down the line. This is, as we remind folks, we are avid anglers as hosts. we are not the experts, which is why we get on guests who are experts to talk about it in depth. But as a trend, yeah, and I agree here, and I think with that trend in this trend of BFS, you're seeing, like Andy mentioned, when you go to these Japanese sites, you can find a laundry list of them. But at least from my perspective, I wouldn't recommend starting there if you're looking to get into BFS. There definitely are a trend in more affordable BFS rods and reels being offered right now on the market. From Arc has gotten into some. Arc has a casting reel rods. Abu Garcia has one. I think it's the Revo X BFS they have, which is around the $100 price point, which is
Cashin's got
very
one for
starter friendly.
$129.
There you go. So there's a lot of starter friendly options that you can get into. But yeah, it's one where if you're looking to get into some nitty gritty, you're very interested about trying different techniques, options outside of the spinning realm, is one worth looking into. I will be diving into BFS this year. It's just funny. Just like Big Swim Baits a while back, I was like, I'm not going to get into that. And here I am diving into BFS after I said 2 years ago, basically, I'll never get into that.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
It happens.
But yeah. Any other takeaways on BFS, guys?
I'm interested to kind of explore with it this year. I think it's something worth myself looking into. I've literally done none of it, so I like it.
Heck yeah.
It'll be fun with your crappie.
That's what I was thinking.
So do you remember like the old Strike King? I think it was like a Bitsy minnow crankbait. They were like this big.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think Roland Martin or one of those guys did a TV show on like Okeechobee, and they're throwing, they caught like a 10-pound largemouth on it. That's a type of bait that you would throw on the BFS, and you'd probably just blow the doors off a fish behind people.
I love it.
We'll throw some popular BFS items from Omnia Fishing down in the description for you guys too, so you can go and check them out in case you want to get some starter items and then anything a little bit more advanced. But like I said, down the road we'll have some more in-depth 101, more expert BFS guests here on the show. But fishing trend 3, the third one, basically gets away from BFS to the other side of the spectrum. That is big swim baits. And now you're saying this, yes, we know of big swim baits. We know that people have been throwing them. We're saying this as a trend that I think it's going to get even bigger. We've seen that happen in the past year and a half with the emergence of, we all know the KGB Chad, but the KGB Spro Chad. And then you have now the ABS Trick Shad from Buka.
Yeah.
That is the what we're seeing now is, from my perspective, and feel free to rebuttal here, guys, or add on, is what started, and don't quote me on the timeline, but say what was big swim baiting 5+ years ago was this smaller niche cultural group of anglers that would go out and only throw these big swim baits, to now it's becoming still that prevalent, still that community, but now there's a much wider, more universal group of anglers that are utilizing swim baits, from pro anglers to even your entry-level angler that can go pick up a Bass Pro Shops $20 swim bait, or the Savage Gear Sign Glide that's $20, and be able to go chuck them and catch big fish.
Yeah.
And I would say they're on the lower end of the spectrum in my eyes of a bait that is complicated to use. You can make it complicated and get very versed, but if you can just chuck out and just wind it back in, it's a pretty user-friendly bait.
Great. It's a great practice bait too, because it just makes fish show themselves. Yeah.
It can be frustrating from that perspective when you're actually fishing it, right? But I totally agree. To your point, Bailey, like I find myself at times being a little lazy and reaching for something that can just cast and wind, baby. And that is one of those baits, versus like having to constantly be doing something. Like if you're looking to just cover water and mindlessly cover water, swim bait makes for an easy way to do that. A big one, especially.
Yeah. And so why we think this is a trend is we think this is going to get even bigger. I think we saw that, like I said earlier, with the Spro KGB conjunction with that swim bait, and you saw the Buka ABS Trick Shad, which took a great glide bait and still is to a now more affordable Trick Shad, which is the ABS version, which I think it's like $60, which
The
I
ABS
want to
one,
preface some people. I think that's $60, isn't it?
38.99 on Omnia.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, excuse me while I go buy 50.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, you know
so
what
I
color
want to
looks
preface
mad
though.
good real quick? Well, okay, sure.
Oh yeah, sure.
I want to
Oh,
see. I want to see what
sorry.
you're talking about.
I'll keep chatting through while you bring it up, but I want to preface this too. While we're mentioning cheaper as $60 or $38, we understand for some that might be a lot for a bait still. But on the grand spectrum of where glide baits have started from, that is actually, believe it or not, that is inexpensive. But when you're talking about these baits that cost $200, $300, don't even get us started on talking about Hinkle shads and the whole eBay war to go find those things. So it's a whole different world, but I think it's going to get even bigger with ones like this, which, Andy, to your point, look amazing.
That Mad Shed looks good.
Yeah, I agree with
Looks
you.
glorious.
Yeah.
Oh, can you? Is there a blow up or zoom into that a little bit, Andy?
I'm not sure.
Click hover to zoom.
I gotta figure out how to zoom in here. Hold on. How do I
You
zoom?
can do it. You can do this.
You see the little hover?
Watching it.
No, just look, Andy. You are an old man.
I know.
Do you see the little hover under? Yeah.
On this
there.
episode of Animal Planet, we have an old man out in the wild.
How am I doing, guys?
You can do it. I would love to take a little chartreuse marker to that belly in there.
Yes.
Do it.
Or you can even get like I think Zappu. I don't know if they cover them. I don't think they carry them at Omnia, but you can get. I think it's Zappu who makes like glide bait strips that you can put on the top, like sight guys, so you can actually see it, and you put them on the top.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of Zappu, as people know on this show, we go into a lot of tangents. The powder strikes again. Which, speaking of another trend that I wouldn't think of again,
Yeah.
powder's been trending, but I think powder's going to grow even bigger this year
Yeah, probably.
because the powder freaking worked for me down at Lake Lanier, boys. I was throwing. The powder works.
I can
man.
never get it. I can never get it. It's always out of
Oh,
stock.
I know. I'm like,
I gotta send you some because it's likely because of people like Andy and I that buy a lot of it at one point at one time, which is why it's never in stock.
I have a
I'll
whole
send you some, man.
compartment of stuff in my boat of scents that I mess around with on guide trips just to see what bites better and doesn't. That
It's
sometimes I don't
crazy.
like to release.
I was on Lake Lanier a couple weeks ago and was throwing just simple. It was a queen tackle rolling head. It was the Z-Man scented streaks, but it was like an old one, like one I had tied on probably 3 months ago that was still on this jig head.
Nice.
And so I was throwing it out at school spots. It's a nice part about the Z-Man plastics, dude. They just last forever.
You just
if they
gotta
don't,
watch your
melt.
hook
I have
on
a box. Yeah, they get a little rusted out, but I have a box
Oh,
of
for
just
sure.
jig heads with old swim baits, old Z-Mans on them, just like stack. I'm like, oh, I need to get through these, man.
Yeah. So it was on this school spots, and I'd watch them on Mega Live 2 come up and chase, and they never eat it. And put on a fresh one, cast it out, chase it, eat it, or one would eat it, and then the whole school would be busted or whatever. And then essentially how Lanier, I'm still trying to learn herring lakes, but I put on the powder just to try it in the same group that would always follow and never eat. Dude, as soon as that powder was on and I threw it back out there, I got it 3 casts in a row. Like it was like you'll see it in the video, but it was impressive how fast that powder worked. And Louis, our man behind the scenes of the socials here at Serious Angler and Lure Lab, he didn't believe me with the powder, so I gave him some of the powder. His first cast with it, he caught one. So he believes in the powder now. So I think the powder is going to be a big one too.
Yeah.
To give us a little honorable mention trend for 2025.
Oh, I've 100% seen it like in real time, multiple times, where they'll eat that. Like you could throw out a fish, they'll chase, and you put the powder on, they eat instantly.
I don't know where I saw, but on social media, you have to apologize. This might actually not be true because I was so
sick,
beyond medicated and delusional from my sickness that maybe I just dreamt it. But I think I saw somewhere that Taku soaks some of his baits for 2 years.
What?
I believe it.
I gotta go look. So I apologize to anybody tuning in. This very well could be like a heavy dose of NyQuil dreams, but I'm fairly certain I saw it somewhere that he drowns his baits for a long period of time. But Yeah, if you want to talk about somebody that believes in the powder, I mean, talk to Taki Vito. We've had him on the show where he talks about his blueberry powder. It's a legit thing, man. But back real quick to conclude the big swim bait portion is if you haven't gotten out on the big swim bait trend, it's actually a really cool one that it's a legit style of fishing. I think that's different compared to a lot of other like picking up a spinnerbait or picking up a chatterbait. This is a whole different style of fishing, and you kind of almost got to approach it completely different too. And you can really go down the deep end of this one, similar to BFS, where you can create a whole different, gear setup to how you approach lakes, things of that nature. But it also be very addicting. It can be extremely addicting. But it's nice to see what we think the trend will be is that it'll become more affordable for. I think you'll see a vast more amount of options of big swim baits for anglers in 2025.
Not just more affordable, but more accessible too. Like as companies make the ABS versions and other companies like Clutch like continue to ramp up production, right? Like there's gonna be more product available, and therefore it's gonna ultimately drive the prices down on everything. So it's
Yeah, and
nicely.
I think there'll still be a place for the garage swim bait guy. There's still going to be a place for the expensive swim baits because I think all this does now is allows. I know there's been chatter. People don't like to see these cheap swim baits that are trying to rule out the expensive or garage or custom made ones. And I don't agree with that because I think all this is doing is, to your point, Andy, making it more accessible for more people, which then I think, well, if anything, if they're like any of us, it creates a addiction, which makes us go down the ladder of, okay, and I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this. And it's like, then you got people like our pal Brendan Brown, who's sending us more expensive glide baits that we need to buy when he knows we can't resist. And so I think with anything that just opens up the
protect your life savings, Bailey. Protect it.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm gonna go bankrupt real quick. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see in 2025 the big swim baits. But
yeah, I mean, I think to your point, as far as what these bigger companies are doing, first of all, there's generally a benefit to the smaller company, right? Like there's a collaboration there, which I like that, number one. And number two, I mean, it's helping the consumer. It's helping more people get into it. And as we all know, certainly I've learned anyway, I spend a lot of money on tackle, and if I can save a little bit of money on things and have a pretty dang good bait for $40 instead of $150, that's helping the consumer at the end of the day. So I see benefit there.
Yeah, that's a biz from the Bass Boat Nugget right there, talking about the two perspectives of bait or really any product pricing. Right? Is there's the consumer side and there's the people trying to make money side. So it's from our standpoint though, it's affordable is better. But
yep.
So we got a couple things. We got one last trend here. But before we get into that, we actually have some information here from Omnia Fishing that is actually pretty cool. Some data that they provided us on some of the top baits that were sold in 2024, and then some trends in the baits since 2023. So to kind of quickly run through some of these with you guys, some of that kind of stand out. I'm curious if you guys have any takeaways from these, but if you guys had to guess, I guess we could probably all agree in the top most sold bait 2024. We all would have thought, at least in my opinion, I would have thought it was a jig head minnow. Agreed?
Yeah, probably jig heads or.
I mean, yeah, like minnow. Yeah, exactly. I
That's what we would have thought, right?
As far as yes.
Well, number one for 2024, the most bought bait was a Z-Man jackhammer. Chatterbait. It still lives on. The chatterbait still lives on.
Such a fish catcher.
But coming up in second was a scented jerk shads. So you know exactly what they were throwing that bait for.
Maybe they're
the
putting the jerk shad on the back of a chatterbait.
They could be.
Maybe.
They could be.
I like how Z-Man's dominating. First of all, like let's go Z-Man. Z-Man's 1 and 2 for, again, this is Omnia's 2024 numbers.
What's number 3?
And
take a wild guess, Andy.
Take a wild guess. Something that quite frankly, this was
probably a birthday
in relation to me with Omnia last year.
No, so actually the flatworm is 11th of the top 15.
Still pretty good for a small
Still pretty
monthly
good.
only bait. Number 3, it's probably a Vision 110.
Nope. No, there's
And
actually,
think about
let's
it,
look.
those
There
don't sell
is,
very often, you know what I mean? Because it's too
it's
you
pricey.
have them for a long time
Yeah.
too.
There
There's
is
just
no
stuff.
jerk bait on the top 15 baits
Yeah.
for 2024. You want me to just come out and tell you, Andy?
Yeah, go ahead.
It is simply the Yamamoto Senko.
Oh, God.
5-inch,
Too
baby.
bad. Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised, even until to today. I mean, it's a testament to the Senko and how it was made, right?
There's
But
nothing like
I'm so surprised, like the Yum Dinger and stuff isn't rising in sales just for how cheap it is.
that. Nothing compares in value.
And nothing, I mean, you know how fishermen are. Once Yamamoto is the first. It's the one that I use
It's the
almost
only
all of the time because I've gotten used to catching fish on it. Yes, I know I'm overpaying for it. Yes, they fall apart and it sucks. I still bought well over a couple $100 in Senkos from Omni.
Dude, you
This
should
last
see my
100.
Senko box in the other room. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you're saying that it is third on Omnia's list for 2024 simply because of YouTube is what you guys are getting at.
There's a
That's
good
exactly
chance.
right.
Yes.
There's a good chance
Got it.
that we artificially inflated these numbers. There's no doubt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, there's
no,
no,
so what's cool?
it's such a versatile bait. You can catch them like throwing it however you want, and you'll catch fish.
Flip it, Nico, wacky rig,
Carolina
Texas
rig it.
jig.
Some people
Carolina
put,
rig.
you can cut it down and put it on the back of a jig. Like, there's all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff you can do.
exactly. You can cut it down and put it on the jig. That's at number 4, which is the Beast Coast Tungsten open water sniper jig.
That jig's
Have you guys messed with that at all?
Oh, it's so good.
not thrown it.
It's
Big time.
so good.
Like, you're an idiot.
And to be honest with you, like, I stopped buying the tungsten ones and bought the L metal ones because I think they're like $2.99, and they're just as good. They have the same hook.
Okay. Are you letting that bait hit the bottom
Oh yeah.
when those fish are following it all the way down? I mean, obviously you're kind of scoping with this thing.
Oh,
I
usually just blind cast it around on guide trips and drag it and catch fish.
Are you letting a different cat out of the bag, Deacon, and saying that you're suspending it?
He just said he
No,
didn't throw it.
That pause says it all.
No, but I've messed around with doing this with a jig with forward facing, but not with this specific jig. But that is something that I've been screwing around with a little bit. I wouldn't say that, like, and I'll be 100% honest with you. It's not like this is something that I'm doing a ton, but I've been messing around with swimming a jig.
Randy will be turning in his grave thinking about us throwing jigs
in the water.
middle of the column. We're flipping a jig out in 90 foot of water. Yeah. But all right, so we have, just to run through these because there's a similar trend throughout almost the rest of this. In 5 we have the Depth Sakamata Shad. 6 is the Baby Z2. 7 we have another chatterbait. We got the chatterbait Elite Evo, so another one from Z-Man.
Good too. I actually been replacing my jackhammers with that. A little cheaper,
Really?
and it fishes good. Yeah, fishes really good.
Interesting. And number 8 we got the Hog Farmer Spunk Shad. Number 9 we got the turd from Z-Man. Z-Man's dominating the top 10.
Dude, I was thinking that too. There's 12 in the top 4 in the top 15 for Z-Man.
That's a lot with different companies we got on here. And 10 is the first jig head we see in the well, beyond obviously the sniper jig, but this is obviously.
Is it Oka Shiver head?
The owner range roller.
Ooh, yeah, that makes sense because of all the minnows.
Yeah. I'm surprised like Queen Tackle isn't up here on this because I would have imagined
it has a great hook, but I'm not a big fan of the range roller.
Why is that?
Because I just tie a loop knot on my standard jig head and it does the same thing.
What if they don't want to tie a loop knot like me?
Lazy
loop knots. I'll teach you how to tie a loop knot, Bailey. It's so easy, and you get way.
You taught me 3 times, and I still can't do it.
I feel like such a piece of crap when it comes to other knots. Like, I do 2 knots, man. Like, that's it. Like, everyone else is like, oh, this is like, I do 2 things, and I will not learn something new.
Yeah,
this is what it is. This is where I'm at in life. I don't have the time.
I will say I left a Palomar knot. Now I tie. I think it's a double uni for like most of my connecting baits, right? And then when I'm minnow pinging, I use a loop knot because I can tie it faster than double uni.
Huh.
Yeah, it's fun. I was talking to Nolan Miner about when I was going saltwater fishing of like setups and like line and all that stuff from like braid to leader. And he's like, yeah, when you're using that heavy of line, like 20-pound braid to what it was like 40-pound fluoro for like some of the saltwater stuff. It's like, make sure you tie an FG knot. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'll just tie a super short leader. Like I'm not doing that crap.
Yeah,
It's
Can't do
easier
it.
to tie an FG knot though on the heavier
big
line
stuff.
because you can keep
It
better
is.
tension on it.
But again, back to Deacon's point, it was just laziness. Like I'm
Yeah.
just going out fishing with my dad. I'm not tying the FG.
Yeah, I don't tie
But
the FG anyways.
yeah,
So.
yeah. But to keep going down this list, just to get through it for folks, because there's a couple other points, some categories from Omnia that are cool to portray here. Is so 11 Berkeley Flatworm. Number 12 is the Chatterbait Minimax from Z-Man.
So many
I think their
chatterbaits.
whole gauntlet of chatterbaits from them are in here. 13 is the VMC crossover ring. So it sounds like more people are using that either for wackying or Nicoing. And then in 14 is the Rapala Crush City freeloader. And then lastly, another jig from Beast Coast, the Tungsten Low Magnum.
Oh, it's another good one.
They're a great jig.
Yeah.
So we have here from, go ahead.
I'd say I have replaced the low magnum though for most situations with the Spro CJ flip. It's a bad do everything jig, man. That thing's nasty.
And he catches them really good one time on it, and he replaces
Dude,
all of his old
no,
stuff.
I still have all my little magnums, but I threw when I was largemouth fishing a lot this summer. I had both on. I caught more on that CJ flip. I just think it skips better, and I like to skip a jig around docks and trees. So where the little
Preferably in
better
3 foot
grass.
waves.
Yes, and get mad and slap my rod on the water.
Yes. Precisely. Well, really quick, we got some category percentages here and then some takeaways that we have from data from Omnia is that 41% of the sales were soft baits. 41%. Jigs were 27%. Terminal was 12%. And hard baits, 8%. So when people are talking about hard baits kind of going down sales wise,
That's a big drop.
it's a big drop.
I think it definitely comes down. I'd be love to check this data year over year, and it's also hard because Omni is growing so fast, right? To like compare stuff year over year. But to me, I mean, I understand there's woes in the fishing industry about hard bait sales going down. A question that I have with all of this though is like, I don't know about you guys. I lose hard baits very rarely now, especially with forward facing. Like I can see everything that's happening, right? If I'm out at all, not like shallow cranking, but if I'm throwing a jerk bait, like I see the tree I'm about to hang on, or whatever it may be. And so, and this isn't even prior to this though. You just generally lose hard baits so much less. Like you don't lose a top water unless you break it.
Unless you live in
So,
pike country, baby.
or that it would be the only other thing. I agree with that statement.
Oh.
Yeah. But my point is like soft baits are a usable good, right? Like you're flying through them. So it's always going to be a massive percentage difference, I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess unless you're really, you're like me and you're
Jigs.
a bum slapping your baits on the surface of the water, like you can keep those hard baits for a while. Like
I got hard baits for 10 years
almost
ago.
Oh, same.
15 years
right.
ago.
But that's a good point though, Deacon, is like especially with forward facing, it's when we talk about it making us more efficient, it's also making us more efficient in, like you said, not getting hung up, which is essentially almost turning hard baits into a hybrid between a durable and a non-durable item. One that is going to last for a while. Like almost puts it in the category of a reel. I mean, some of the brand reels, we might have a hard bait that lasts longer than some of the brand reels that are out there right now. So it's like
It's true.
they can go through it. So that's a great takeaway there. That it might not just be that they're not being bought; they might be just used as just as enough. It's just we're so efficient now at not losing them.
Yeah,
right. So that's a really good point. So some more takeaways, and then we'll get into fishing trend number 4 here is more tubes, minnows, and swim baits have been bought. Less frogs, worms, and craws. Just thought that was odd with more open water sniper jig and little magnum, but less craws.
Well, it's because they're putting
more tubes.
They're putting TRDs and little generals, and there's a sneaky little deal. Put the small max head tube on the back of an open water sniper jig.
Interesting.
Pretty
like.
good. It just makes
He's
it
letting it all
bulkier.
out.
Yeah.
I was interested to see more tubes. Makes you wonder what's been going on now. More jig heads, football jigs, and bladed jigs. Less hair jigs, neds, flipping jigs, and finesse jigs.
Is it just me, or does it seem like the Ned rig bite is getting harder to come by every year?
Maybe just because of the Ned rig hate.
Maybe the fish can feel it.
Yeah, maybe
The fish are joining the movement to hate Ned rig.
Yeah, maybe. I think I caught
It's all out war on the Ned.
I threw it quite a bit this past summer. I think I caught like maybe less than 5 fish on it. I also hate throwing a Ned rig. So
I hate.
I think it's still
love
there, man.
how it catches big fish. So, it does.
I think it's still there. It's there. As much as we tease it, it definitely still works. I think it's. But to people's points though, you're like, why is a flipping jig on the top 15 baits, but it's less flipping jigs? This is looking year over year since 2023. It's just less flipping jigs, finesse jigs that are being bought. And then last takeaway was the only hard bait to increase since 2023 was jerk baits. The only hard bait category. So that means top waters went down, crank baits went down from shallow to deep, things of that nature, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. But again, could become a multitude of reasons, as Deacon very smartly pointed out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I mean, we're all massively aware of when a live tournament, especially something you can verify, like how a guy's catching them, changes fishing sales, right? And I think back to when I bought my first Whopper Plopper. It was watching Chris Lane going down on Toledo Bend with the Whopper Plopper, smoking them like big ones, right? And so I wonder, with some of these rule implications that we're looking at in 2025, NPFL, Major League Fishing, these changes that we're going to see, I wonder if we see some of those bumps occur again because of a top water, something new related to that. And you see some of that kind of kick back, right? Versus kind of the traditional, what we've seen this last year. So I don't know, something to think about for 2025.
Before we get into the last trend, brand new to the show, is a new segment we like to call the Amped Outdoors Electric Take. So this is going to be a new conversation segment where we give our bold takes on a topic each week. And it's presented by our new lithium battery partner, Amped Outdoors. Amped is our preferred choice to power our bass boats, kayaks, and any off-grid adventure we have with some of the Amped Outdoors power stations. Amped Outdoors lithium batteries are lightweight, long-lasting, and built for performance while enduring any tough condition Mother Nature presents us with. We rely on Amped Outdoors for all of that. So check them out at ampedoutdoors.com or click the link in our description to go ahead, check out their website. And this week's Amped Outdoors Electric Take is around what do we think will be the emerging topic by the end of 2025. So we talked about the trends in 2025 going into 2025 on this show. We're talking about what is going to be as we go into 2026, a year from now. What do we think will be an emerging topic?
Can I start with a funny one?
By all means.
Are we talking like tackle related here, or is this anything?
I think it's anything. This is anything. It can be tackle related if you want.
Okay.
Anglers who opted to fish non-forward facing sonar leagues will be mad when they struggle to catch fish offshore.
Oh,
what a savage take. Andy's going to get some hate mail, baby. I love it.
Right,
This is how we start 2025. Come on.
It's just going to be funny when everyone's like, oh, bring it back for 2026 because we can't catch, offshore anymore.
damn.
What a savage take.
We are starting the electric takeoff literally.
And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it would be funny if it did.
Oh my gosh.
Just the
positivity
out there for the forward-facing sonar.
Wow. That is
exactly Andy, remember our first trend. Fishing is fun, Andy. Come on.
It is fun when you catch them.
You know what will be wild? And it's just not our platform. We don't act this way. But how funny would it be? I mean, now we're starting to get into Barstool-esque type things. But how funny would it be if an angler, and this could happen at any time, right? Like including any angler out there, including ourselves, you just have a really bad year. But what if this actually occurs to a well-known angler that was completely against forward facing and everything else? And then literally it's just a video at the end of the season, a clip of Andy saying that, and then you just look at the stats at somebody at like 104th finish, and you're like, oh, like, that would be savage.
I'm sure somebody like a high class Bassmaster is going to clip this segment and save it for the end of the year. Yeah, yeah,
Got to get famous somehow, right?
yeah, something like that.
Hey, all
Something like-
publicity is good publicity.
So they say.
It's not a knock at anybody, right? Like I think it's kind of cool that all three tournament organizations are kind of doing their own thing. And
a case study.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I'm just like, I wonder what is going to happen.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and I understand some anglers don't like that it's all different, and I'm sure guys that don't like forward facing love that NPFL is doing it, and some guys don't like things being restricted. And I think all three of us see each viewpoint, but I think all three of us can agree as a consumer, it's awesome what we have in front of us for 2025, being that we have three different products. We get to see what's going to work for even the trails themselves. I think this is an exciting time because we're going to be able to see what does well as a product for live bass fishing to go forth into the future. Whereas this is going to be a cool year for us because we're going to get to see guys not use it whatsoever. We're going to be able to guys basically have the same thing, just quote unquote restricted. And then we're going to have a trail that has 3 periods where only one of period they get to use it. Where the other two, they got to go put on. I mean, MLF just announced the whole lockbox system they got.
It's the chastity belt. I think that's what we start calling
it. The chastity belt. 7 locks. Can't be touched till married.
Lock it in.
We're gonna see an Alex and Eve sponsorship one of these days now because of that. But parents, sorry for the non-disclosure of this show.
Sorry.
But
I mean, that's not
anyways. All I'm trying to get at here is it's gonna be really exciting. I think to see the different things. I think as students of the game, we should be excited because we're going to see the best of the best get put in different situations than we've seen in recent.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really cool live television to see how they adjust, see the things they're going to have to do. They're not going to have 5 jig head minnows on deck all day long anymore. They're going to have a buzzbait, a chatterbait, something to flip, whatever that may be for that
you can
location.
still jig head minnow with 2D. Technically.
You can. You very well can. We might see some of that, but we also might see guys go resort to the bank and start bumping and grinding and winding and doing whatever.
The whole offshore football jig drag it back, man.
Old Carolina rig, baby. Let's go.
Trying to see
bring it back.
Where Tyler Reve sitting on the front deck on his keister, dragging the old ball and chain around.
That was awesome. That was one of my favorite clips from the year. Was it 2 years ago in Oahe?
Yeah,
that was pretty good. But yeah, so I think to continue this,
that's what 2025 is.
I can't wait for live fishing, dude. I can't wait to. This is when I watch the most live fishing. Is this time of the year? I'm so ready to watch Bassmaster and everything else.
Oh yeah,
this is the time of the year for laughing.
Needs to happen.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think one thing, being the content creator that I am, that's kind of the side I looked at first, and I think by end of 2025, I think there's actually going to be a lot of fishing creators that move to Twitch. And I think you're actually going to see a lot of live fishing on Twitch from content creators because we've seen this big boom on YouTube. YouTube's very saturated. I've seen a couple people try to do it already. Twitch is a big thing on the gaming side, and I can see as much as some people like to watch, like ourselves, watch live fishing, I could see that become a thing now for content creators. Even potentially, I think if pro anglers were smart, they'd figure out a system to run it live, whether that's to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, of their own days in the water. I think that'd be pretty smart to do. I could see that being a big shift for 2025.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to me. I heard something the other day too, and this is like, quite frankly, folks getting a high level approach of sometimes some of how our meetings go, right, at Serious Angler. But this is something that I've been meaning to bring up to the both of you, and I'll just do it live here. It's like I saw something the other day that talked about how there's just a continuing trend, and I see it and friends, and whatever else, whether it's working from home or it's someone gaming. Like, I'm not a gamer whatsoever, right? But have some friends that are. Always, when they are playing, they have a screen pulled up with something else live going on, whether that be, some other gamer doing something live, a football game, a basketball game, whatever it may be. There's always another screen playing just as that. And I'm personally saying, from a health standpoint, this worries me about our, like, just always having to have something going. But I think that that's a great thought process, Bailey, and like a trend that we're going to continue to see of just live, if people can curate that content correctly, to just have something going all day. Like, there's viewership that is just wanting something on related to whatever they're into.
Yeah. Yeah. And I more say that as too, is I'll be one of those ones trying to do it this year.
There we go.
But I do think there's a place there for it. And it doesn't have to be Twitch. I think Twitch is
Right.
the least participated platform for the outdoors right now. But I think anglers can do it on YouTube. They could do it on Facebook. They could do it on Instagram. RIP TikTok in 6 days. Not gonna do it there.
Is it actually gonna? What's the deal there? What's the latest?
Qigong. I know. I heard
100%.
what's his
Kevin
face
O'Leary.
from Shark Tank
Kevin O'Leary.
wants to buy it, but it's there. He wants to buy it, but it's not for sale yet. So it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
it will
officially
sell
status
there.
is gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Got it. It's one of those I
Which
never
is-
got on. Never have had a TikTok. I've just been sent millions of them. And so anyways, I just see the things that come up on Instagram Reels that everyone's like, I saw this 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Deacon's like, don't take my info, China. Bunch of bastards.
Even though I don't even think it's China that technically owns it. It's like one of
No, it's not. It's a but the problem was I do not want to make this show political. We're gonna make this quick and we're gonna move on. The owner of it, apparently, from my knowledge, is his former career was in the Chinese military.
Gotcha.
But he's now a businessman. And so I don't understand all the facts. Essentially, that was, I think, the root cause of where the desire to get rid of TikTok was.
Got it.
Either way, what it sucks for I really feel for the people that are like content creators that have actually made a insightful and meaningful living off of TikTok and that platform as a content creator, which is something I feel for now, being one myself. And it's tough to see that leave, but I think they'll be just fine moving to other platforms, which we'll see. We're going to see now a big shift in Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, making way for all these people from TikTok. They're going to flood to other platforms. So,
right. And if they're smart, they've been doing it. It just may not be their mainstay.
Yep.
Right.
Correct. But, all right, Deacon, you got anything?
The one that came to mind, I was thinking tackle related, is something we talked about when I was in Buffalo with you guys, and that's sinking braid. A braid for forward-facing sonar type stuff to suspend baits differently, or suspend baits that maybe weren't always super suspendable in a different manner, and just playing with that stuff. I mean, made the comment, Bailey, and it's so true. You look at some of live fishing last year with the top pros on Elite Series and Major League Fishing, you saw some pink spools, and those pink spools generally were that braid that Sunline makes, and that is that sinking style braid. And so, Berkeley's come out with one. There's a bunch of them now, right? And so, I haven't messed with any of it yet, but maybe that's a trend to see in 2025 as we kind of continue with the forward-facing trend.
Yeah, I think we're going to see an advancement of that from a forward-facing sense. I think you're going to see more brands try to label certain things forward-facing to try to increase sales, as we see as like that those terms that,
oh my gosh,
like we've seen it tried, like the kayak rod, which don't get me down that rabbit hole because it's stupid. But like you're going to see these different terms that people try to use to latch onto their products to be trendy and make more sales.
What is it?
I think in this case, though, that's what I'm been asking the whole freaking time. It doesn't make any sense.
Is it like a 2-piece, 3-piece rod that's easily stored?
No,
shorter, right? It's like a short butt on it.
Short butt, yeah, 7 foot.
The old style.
Andy,
pistol grip.
Your exact,
hell yeah, nice.
Your exact point makes exactly why I asked why kayak rods are ever even a thing. I've been asked that by some media members too, and I'll tell them that they don't exist.
Listen,
it's a fishing rod.
Give me a 5'8" pistol grip medium action rod, and I'll sling a spinnerbait around docks all day.
It's from the conversation of like you can't have too big of a rod like to go kayak fishing, which is like I still punch on my kayak with a 7-Eleven extra heavy.
Extra leverage.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a dumb conversation again. I told myself I would not start down it. Here we are. So I'll backtrack. I'll concede. So before we go down another rabbit hole, our last fishing trend, I guess we kind of did dive into it a little bit, and it's that we thought we saw forward-facing sonar be used to its fullest capability, and I think we're wrong.
More's coming.
I think we're going to see more coming, but we're also going to see more use cases for it.
I think perspective mode starts increasing.
I think perspective mode, and I think by the end of 2025, we're going to see a new mode come out that we haven't seen yet.
Total 360.
VR headsets, total immersion.
Randy's really going to lose his mind, man. Come on.
We're gonna see a new bait come out that's just like you just gotta click the bail on your rod and it just goes in the water and goes to find the fish.
Exactly. It's got a GPS tracker in it. You click the fish, you look on forward facing, and you're like, there he is. That's a 5-pounder sitting on a brush pile, and you click it, and your bait just goes.
Mike Long would be rejoicing, right?
Knocks the fish out.
Yeah, it just is an automatic, just like you're like, I got him.
Yeah, that went off the deep end there. Oh, it's good. But yeah, I think in all seriousness, though, I think we're gonna see a continued advancement of forward facing of technology in general, just to be more efficient, more capability, and with that, we're gonna see more conversation, unfortunately, come out for good and for bad, about restricting it or what's right, what's wrong. And I think while we all three of us hate to see the negative conversation, I do think the conversation just around the tech and us as humans asking, should we advance? I think that's a good conversation to have, especially when we're talking about wildlife. So I think that is good to have as we go forward. Just remind everybody, go back to fishing trend number 1. Fishing is fun. Try not to embrace any of the negative conversation you see online. But we'll be curious as we go forward as an angler to see what is new from the technology standpoint. But
yeah, without a doubt.
Dudes, anything else?
No, it was a great episode. Great way to kick off 2025.
Yeah. And Adam, anything else? First episode in the books for the Serious Angler crew for 25.
Fired up about it, having fun, and cool to see the trends. And I would love for us to remember all of this and compare it to 2025 next year.
Yeah. I guess we'll see people a year from now as we do a 2026 trends. But folks, appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in to the first episode of 2025. With a not all new, but definitely an updated look, listen to the shows. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Please let us know if you are. And if you'd like to have a question or a topic, whether it's on the electric take the next go around or just simply brought up on the show, feel free to DM us, send us an email. We'd be happy to bring your question or topic onto one of our future shows here at Serious Angler. But appreciate y'all, and we'll see you on the next one.